Ah, there it goes. Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. It's Christmas week. I've got a Christmas shirt on, given to me by Mystery Mike, who sent me just a boatload of shirts. An absolute boatload of them. I've got Santa Claus. I've got hot wahine. I've got a reindeer. I've got it all on this sucker. It's great. So, I know what you guys probably want to talk about today. Probably talk about every day. Some news breaking this evening. For one, a Fidelity rep let slip that all the shares are synthetic. Oops. that if you're in a brokerage, you probably have fake shares. The counterfeits. Folks have been getting the runaround from their brokers. They call the broker, like, you gotta call AST, figure out what's going on. You call AST, and they're like, you gotta call the DTCC. And you call the DTCC, and they say, you know what, you gotta call a broker. There are a couple of things you can do with regards to trying to get your next bridge out of your Acme. And one of the things you can do is when you call your broker, say, I would like you to ask the DTC for me about where the shares are. Because they've got this little system called WINS, which is a communication channel specifically designed to elevate retail broker concerns from the brokerage to the DTC. And these logs are public domain. Like you can download the logs, the WINS logs, and see if your broker actually did the contact or not. There's a user who wanted to remain anonymous, but he's contacted me and he's contacted Roza, who can show that he specifically asked, I think it was TD Ameritrade who he had, to contact the DTC on his behalf and elevate his concerns. And then he went and checked the logs and discovered that not only had they not contacted DTC about this, they have never contacted DTC ever for any customer of any kind regarding Acme. So they're doing the runaround, right? Like they're passing the buck on to the next guy and pretending like it's the next guy's problem. The fact that Fidelity was willing to admit that they had counterfeits in their customers' accounts seems to me like evidence enough for any judge to say, okay, they didn't close their positions as required by law, as required by the S1, as required by Finra's own corporate action. They're going to have to close these positions before we can move on from this at all. Because otherwise it's just going to be a giant mess. Because as we can see, it's a giant mess. I had two different people today message me with minutes of each other, I think from E-Trade, who had customers at E-Trade. And one of them told the customer that, oh yeah, it's all going to be squared away. You'll have your next bridge by the 29th, 14 days after issuance. And then they told the other customer, oh, it'll be happening by January 9th, which is the next year, which is almost a month after issuance. For a system that's electronic, right? Like it's an electronic system. It's a fast system. It's like you go into your keyboard and blink, it's done. That's the whole reason why you make an electronic system. And instead of being able to go and be done, you're going, I don't know. Call the other guy, see if he knows. And you call the other guy, he's like, I don't know. That doesn't really seem to be the type of system that instills confidence into shareholders. I mean, we got a snippet of it when GameStop did their dividend split, right? They issued 240 million shares or whatever to ComputerShare. ComputerShare gave out a bit to their customers who are registered, and then they gave the rest to the DTC to spread amongst the brokers to fill people's accounts. Instead, the DTC took those shares and then told all the brokers to make it a forward split, and they magically just split the shares that already existed into more rather than adding to their totals with that pile. Which means there's somewhere out there an extra 200 and something million shares that never got distributed. So we know that the malfeasance is there. We know that they're being shady as fuck. And we know that they'll get away with it unless we raise a stink. So, there's awesome folks like you who have been contacting your elected representatives. You've been filing official complaints with SEC. You've been filing tips to the FBI. Fantastic. Get the financial crimes dudes on this. Because, I mean, this is remember, we're just one little puny microcap stock. And there's enough liability tied up in that microcap stock to take down the whole of the global economy. Right? So, like, how else are you going to fix this thing unless we can show them that it's broke? That it's a big, giant smoke and mirrors magic show that these so-called regulators, these private companies that regulate the market somehow, but all the positions are filled with members or owners of the funds they're supposed to be regulating. There's definitely, fox watching the henhouse mentality on this. And then the SEC is completely toothless. They can go, that's bad, and then issue a $10 fine to somebody. But we need more guts in there. And that's what I think you guys have been doing. It's been fantastic. And until then, bye. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off. Remember, it's off. No cat to distract me. Monkey butt's asleep. We're good. So the most recent update from Roza was hours and hours and hours. It was like 9 hours ago. See if she's... I forgot to check right before I came on the show. She's probably asleep right now, but she's just looking for as much sleep as humanly possible. Yeah, 12 hours ago was her most recent update, that she had contacted judges' chambers, asked for a hearing to rule in my favor on TRO due to the emergent circumstances. No response yet. So I have no idea if there's been an update, if she got in there at all sometime today. Hopefully tomorrow she'll be able to get in there. I mean, it is time. Time is of the essence, and they've got basically 10 days to wrap this up. 11 days. Otherwise, it carries over the next year, and that just means weird tax liabilities for everybody. So, I do think there's a good chance that a federal judge who all they care about is the particulars and the peculiarities and the specificities of law. They don't care what it could do to the economy. They don't care if someone's fees are hurt. They don't care if elected officials are like, no. They don't care if some rich guy cares. They will look at the law and they'll go, the law says you have to do this, so that's what you guys are going to do. And Finra might be like, Your Honor, but there's not enough time for us to figure out how to get this thing trading again. The judge will be, you just go to your computer and go, and it starts trading again, right? That's how you got it to stop trading, so you can make it trade by going on a computer. I don't care. And they might be like, well, we're going to appeal. Well, the judge may say, you can appeal, but you still have to carry out my order by the 31st of December. You got 2 days, figure out how to trade, close all the shares. And you might have brokers that say, well, even if Finra opens up trading, TD Ameritrade, we're not gonna have them for sale. The judge might say, TD Ameritrade, you have to close all short positions that are inside your accounts. I don't care how you do it. It might cost a fortune. You may be liquidating a whole bunch of hedge funds and banks. I don't care. Do it. And the TD Ameritrade goes, what? He says, you do it or you're toast. And then they have to do it. That's the great thing about federal judges. They can just tell you to do something and you kind of have to do it. Otherwise, they issue a warrant and then you're just in contempt and you're fucked. So, that's granted, that's like the pie in the sky, rainbow land ideal situation. But it's obvious the law's on our side. It's obvious they've been lying and giving the runaround. It's also obvious they're never going to get the next bridge shares. They just aren't. They don't have them. The AST took them all. There's nothing to sprinkle over to the DTC to distribute to the brokers. Therefore, the brokers aren't going to get anything. There's a gentleman posted on our Reddit just a little bit ago that he's got lending turned off on his brokerage account, and Webull has been lending his shares. His Acme shares have been getting lent out post trading halt. So he had shares and they took them. So he has definitely synthetics in his account. So we know that they're synthetic. We know they did not close. People keep asking things like, well, what if they actually did close all their positions and there aren't any shares? The last day of trading, they traded 13 million shares. We know 9 million of which were short. And if there was no more trading after that, how did they close those positions? How did they cover? They didn't. So at the very least, there are 9 million shares short. That's just one day. We can look at the FTDs and the amount of shares that were borrowed over the past who knows how long. I mean, there were 2 billion share transactions since October of last year on this piddly little stock. 2 billion. That is crazy. That's an insane number of shares to trade for a little micro cap. Like, that should not be the case. And then people are like, well, you know, they got those the tokens, the digital tokens, the blockchain tokens that we're trading. And, you know, those trade for a 1-for-1 that are required to by law. I don't know if that's actually true. But they minted 500 billion of them. You think if you minted 500 billion of a particular security, that it's going to be 1-for-1 when there's only 165 million of that security? No. It's just an array of crime and fraud that is everywhere. And our only hope to do something about it is to raise such a stink that they have to do something about it. Just be relentless. Be persistent. Be annoying. Say, do something, do something, do something, do something to every person who is in a position to do something about it until they do something about it. Just don't stop ever, right? Because the only way they're going to be able to keep 64,000 of us from bugging them constantly. 64,000 people is enough to fill a stadium. Any woman in the chat right now who's been in a stadium of 64,000 people knows exactly how awful the bathroom line is in a place like that, right? That's the type of line that should be outside the door of every elected official at the federal level. Should be the awfulness of waiting for the bathroom at a football stadium. So, you know, we can tag team. Someone wants to be like, okay, I gotta take like 4 days off. There's another 63,399 of you that can like tag right in and go, all right, my turn to annoy the elected official. My turn to submit another tip to the FBI. My turn to file a complaint to Finra or the SEC. My turn to call the broker once more. The brokers are just like, oh my gosh. And they're trying to figure out whatever way they can to like get you off the phone. One of the brokers today told someone that, oh, like all the Series A shares went out, but apparently all the customers have Series B shares and they haven't gotten those yet. There are no Series B shares. There was Acme 1, which then became Acme, and that's it. and that stuff becomes next bridge. So they're trying to figure out however they can to get you off the phone and leave them alone. And you just call them again and be like, hey, so where are my shares? And they're going to go, you gotta call the DTC. And he's like, okay, how about you call a DTC for me on that Win system and ask them where my shares are? And they go, what? And like, well, you're kind of required to by law. I'm asking you to use the dedicated communication channel to contact the DTC and ask them where my shares are. So please do that right now. So you guys can elevate this anytime you want. Keep going. Rock and roll. They got to pay us. By law, they're supposed to pay us. And I think Roza can make that argument. Someone told me that another lawyer filed suit, but I didn't see anything on his Twitter page. What was I can't remember his name. So there's probably more going to be happening, and I hope some of you are also, especially those of you out in those tiny little rural states with some lonely federal judges who are looking to make a splash, file as well. Oh boy. Okay. Shall we jump in the chat, Monkey Butt? Monkey Butt's been a little off. I went to my best friend's birthday dinner, and his sister's dog attacked Monkey and put a little hole in her ear, and she's been a little mopey, and she keeps shaking her head a lot whenever it feels weird. It's not infected, luckily. Got it cleaned out, and she's she'll be fine. But she's been like little ennui, right, Monkey Butt? Just a little ennui. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Guitar Stuff got here first. Good job. Says54 says Pickle Rick. Lit Mashad puts a pickle on there. Nick M. Houston regarding Acme. What do you see happening in the next 2 weeks? Your predictions. I do have faith in the federal court system. And in particular, it seems like the judge that Roza got is a good judge to have if you are a retail investor who got screwed. That he seems to look at the stuff and goes, retail investor is the one that got screwed in this one. I'm going to rule in their favor. So I would assume that her temporary restraining order and emergency injunction, the judge goes, au carte blanche, says that there's been proof there's been enough injury, and that whatever Finra has done, the U3 halt must get lifted. And I'm sure that in her restitution, she'll ask for 2 more days of trading and to force the brokers to close positions. So there might be like no buying on our part, right? Because what's the point of us buying more if, the price is $10,000 a share? Why would you want to buy more? There'll probably be closed positions only for investors, and the experts, the brokers, will be basically closing positions and charging the hedge funds or liquidating them for whatever price it is to close those positions. I know it's an ideal situation, but I think it's completely within the realm of possibility. If that doesn't happen, then I assume we get to the 2-week period. 28th is over, end of trading day on 28th. We're rolling to 29th, and we don't have shares. We still have some crummy QSIP, and they're going to try and push us into the obligations warehouse where they'll forget about us forever and hope that NextBridge never sells their assets and results in like a hefty dividend for everybody. Those kind of the 2 options that we have. But if it does get to the point where we don't have shares by 29th, then there's every reason to go back to that judge and say, hey, we were right. They lied. We all have counterfeit shares. We don't have the real deal, and none of us got the shit we were promised. There's our injury right there. We don't have the thing we paid for, and they lied and said we were going to get it. So the brokers are hoping that the hand of God comes down and touches all those counterfeit shares and turns them into the real thing somehow. And they're trying to buy as much time as they can to make way for the heavens to part and for this magical thunderbolt of godly fingers to manipulate everything for them and Deus Ex Machina style. And somehow everyone has NextBridge shares when they know for a fact there are none. They may try to somehow create some, but if you have a share with QSIP, you don't have the NextBridge. You got something else. And yeah, so those are the options for the next 3 weeks. Pretty much one of those three. I'm leaning more towards the court gives Roza what she's asking for, because it seemed like they were kind of like winking and nodding about what she needed to do to really make an airtight case for them to rule on, and I think she got there. So, okay. Andrew Stewart, Houston Evergrande up 425%. What the fuck? I mean, it's really easy to go from almost zero up 425%, but at the same time, they have no money. They owe like $300 billion and they can't build anything. So what you going to do with that? What property they have outside of mainland China has been seized by their creditors. So their office buildings in Hong Kong and stuff don't belong to them anymore. Yeah, I don't know. Apparently, Sears bonds also rose quite a bit today. The stock doesn't have a price anymore still, so there's that. But their bonds went up for some reason. Craig Dubs. Did you happen to listen to the guy Kit on the Twitter space talking about his gray market experience opinions? Like I said, if you didn't come across it. I have not listened to it. I went to my niece's Nutcracker performance. So a lot of today was like getting to the Nutcracker performance, watching 3 hours of Nutcracker performance, and then getting back from the Nutcracker performance. So I didn't have much chance. I like went to the Nutcracker, tried to get all the messages off my phone I could. Came out and there was like 200 of messages. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. And I worked my way through those and got to the point that it took me like 3 hours to get through all the messages I got from you guys when I got a Nutcracker. So I haven't had a chance to like watch anything beyond the 25-second video of the Fidelity agent saying, yeah, you have synthetics in your account. So sorry. Haven't had time to do anything longer than that. Murdoch, hey Houston, Sears bonds show gains of 4,000%. Call your trade rep verified portfolio balance. What's the next step to not too familiar bonds? I am not a bond trader either. I mean, I guess the goal is to get the bonds to the value of the debt, right? So the bonds going up suggests that people believe Sears is going to pay those bonds. I've always had my doubts as to them paying those bonds simply because the whole point of going into bankruptcy is to discharge debt. But if they start paying off those things, then I guess they're worth something. I don't have any bonds. I just have the shares, which are currently not trading, and we're waiting for whatever the new stock will be that will eventually trade or turn into a cash dividend. But I mean, up 4,000%, that's pretty darn good. Going 40x on something is kind of what you shoot for as an investor. So I mean, how far away from the value of the actual bond are you? I did not look at the prices. So I mean, if you get to the point where you're like 95% of the value of the bond, get out. That's definitely time to be done. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but that's the bond's not going to become worth more than what the outstanding outstanding debt is. So keep your eye on that, I guess. Japan halted bond futures trading. Yeah, Japan basically shut down their bond market. Their bonds are kind of worthless right now. Great time of year to announce that. That will really help all the markets. But you got a bond market where there's no cash to invest in these bonds. Like everyone needs to issue bonds to cover expenses, which of course leads to inflation, all that stuff. Germany's announcing that they're going to be issuing like the largest bond series they ever have, because they have to pay for all this natural gas they can't get from Russia anymore. And they're going to have to probably increase the welfare state, because you have all these people that are furloughed from factories and other industrial work, and they're going to have to pay for it somehow. So they're going to issue all these bonds, and then you got all these little smaller European nations be doing the same thing. It's the market's going to be flooded with bonds, and not going to be enough cash to buy them all. So I don't know where that leaves the rest of the market, other than bond prices go, and as they fall off a cliff, they land somewhere in the turds of every pension fund, hedge fund, mutual fund, social security fund, sovereign wealth fund in the entire world, because they use those government bonds as the basis for every play they make. And we're probably going to be looking at not just a liquidity crisis, but a margin crisis as well, because they're going to have to rein in margin by the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars as the value of these like foundational assets shrink. They're going to have to figure out how to get these folks to close positions and relinquish a lot of that margin, because the banks are already overextended in all these things anyway, and they're not going to be able to push them any further, especially if the global markets fall off a cliff due to every awful thing that's going on. Jonathan Olson, please provide the source link where I can review this brokerage slip up unveiling the synthetic shares. I got to make time to go to track down and talk to my LV congressman. Want to get information. I retweeted it on my Twitter, so at the Houston Wade. It's retweeted on there. A lot of people in the movement have posted it or retweeted it, but you'll be able to find it on there. It's a little 25-second recording with a Fidelity rep saying, "Yeah, you got synthetics. That's just what you have in your account." So that's more than enough evidence that they did not close before trading was shut off, and they've not closed since, which is all the evidence you need to show that the S1 was not followed, and that they've got short positions on a private company, which is against the law. So there you go. There you go, Jonathan. Just head on over to at the Houston Wade. Scroll down a little few, you'll find it in there. Maybe I can just pull it up on my screen here. I gotta scroll that, put that over there. There we go. And I gotta go there. I gotta go there. I gotta scroll down to, there it is. Okay. Boom. And that one. And that one. And that one. There we are. Okay. So Happy and Positive retweeted Robert Barker, who did the recording. So I retweeted that one because it kind of explains what that is. And I just click on that, get the link there, copy that, throw it into the chat so you can go right to it. There you go. And apparently there's like a 25-minute version, but this is only like 25 seconds long, and it's got the meat of it right towards the end and gives you what you need. The recording's pretty awful. Hopefully somebody can clean it up so that you can understand it better. But it's got a lot of noise to the recording. But apparently, I've not checked to see if this is true. Apparently, you can specifically ask your rep, your broker, say, "Hey, are the shares in my account the real deal, or are they synthetic?" And they're supposed to tell you if they are one or the other. I've not checked if that's an actual law, but that's what people were saying, is that apparently you can ask them and say, "Hey, are the shares in my account the real thing, or are they synthetic?" And they got to tell you. So try that when you call them. See if that works out for you. Okay. Where are we? P. Kumar, hi there. Do you think MOAS will still happen? GME, APE, T plus 30, came and gone. RCA, not doing anything. Acme, story almost over. Should we still have some hope, or are we really screwed? No, I am a hope machine. I will be a ray of positivity for all you negative Nancys out there who just want to curl up and give up. I'm not that type of dude. I don't curl up and give up. I am annoying as hell. You guys know this. I will be loud. I'll be annoying. I'll yik yak all day long. I'll contact whoever I need to contact. I will send letters, emails, phone calls, show up in person, knock on doors, fart into jars and hand them to people, whatever needs to happen. But I do have some qualms. So apparently Adam Aaron has now diluted another 125 million of apes at a very extremely low, like below $1 price, which is just the dumbest, and pardon my French, the dumbest fucking thing Adam Aaron can do. Like, buddy, get your shit together. Quit proving me right about you. I don't want to be right about you being a really crappy CEO during this era of meme stocks. Just be better than that, dude. Be better than that. Your whole pounce is like, oh, I pounced. And what do we have to show for it 3 months later? Not a thing. Not one damn thing. No prospective merger with Disney. No figuring out how to sell those 400 and whatever million apes for $10 each or more to be able to pay off all your debt so that all of a sudden you're a profitable company. Because the only thing keeping AMC from being profitable right now is the interest on their debt. That's it. They get rid of the interest on their $5 whatever billion in debt. They're home free. They made it. All that money that they're making becomes basically profit. How hard is that, man? It's not that hard. Like pounds or something. I have no idea what's going on with Ryan Cohen. He always seems to have something kind of lurking in the background there. I don't know. GME's getting hammered down, but that's because everything's getting hammered down. And I think the goal of the hedge funds is to get to below $16. But if the courts rule in our favor in Acme, we get just buco dollars, then we're going to take that money and we're going to buy a whole bunch of GameStop and a whole bunch of Acme parent company and so on. And that's going to increase buy pressure insanely. So getting one win could be a nice little domino effect for a whole bunch of other wins down the line. Think positive. Not just think positive, but be active. Proactive. Annoying. Go out there and get it. Seize your fate. I was trying to tell somebody on Twitter this who was just a little, where's me? You have an opponent who's rich, and they're being proactive in every way they can to avoid having to own up to the fact that they messed up. And if you just lay there and take it, then they win. Cool, good job. Boo-hoo. But if you fight, at least you have a chance, right? Because no, when I was a kid, my mom would take us camping, like all summer long. We'd drive for months. We'd just go up and down the coast and the mountains. We'd just camp everywhere for days, weeks at a time. And you always see some like hippie with their thumb out on the road. And I was always kind of fascinated with like the hitchhikers because they always looked like just slime balls. And B, I was like, oh, 8-year-old kid, take some gumption to stick your thumb out and get in a stranger's car and drive along, especially when you go through school and they tell you to never get in a car with strangers and all that stuff. And asked my mom, like, have you ever picked up hitchhikers? She's like, yeah, back in the day, 60s and 70s, you pick up hitchhikers. Like, I'm not really doing it anymore. But she said, if you're going to pick up a hitchhiker, the one main rule is if they're just sitting there with their thumb out expecting a ride, don't pick them up. They're not worth it. If they're walking and heading towards a destination and they're thumbing for a ride, those are the ones you pick up. Because they're not expecting a car to pick them up. They've got a plan B. And that plan B is, I've got feet and I'm going to walk to wherever I go, however long it takes. But if I get a ride, cool. Right? Those are the hitchhikers you pick up. So if you're just going to lay there and just hope that like someone else does the dirty work for you, no one's going to do it. But if they see you going out there and getting your hands dirty and doing some work to like fix and remedy your situation, even if you got to do it yourself and it sucks and it takes time, people are going to notice what you're willing to put in and they might show up and give you a ride, right? So, P. Kumar, I suggest you just got to dive in there, do what it takes to seize your own fate. So, that's what we should all be doing, man. Get in there. Help out. Rock and roll. Wait, wow, good morning. I guess something big is afoot. Well, you know, there could be Bigfoot out there. Sad boy. I think NYC is undervalued by 10x its trading value compared to its book value. Thoughts? It has a lot of the telltale signs of short and distort. I have no idea what NYC is. I'm just going to get New York City, aren't I? Robert De Niro, New York City. Welcome to New York. Okay, I got to go like Yahoo Finance. Bam. Bam. Come on. Just bam. And what? No, don't. I'm not signing in. Leave me alone. Okay, New York REIT Incorporated. They're at $2. Oh, you guys can't see because I didn't turn. Okay, there we go. That helps. $2. Got 208. Went below $2. They've been as high as 13 last 5 years, and that looks 13 looks kind of like what they've done peaked. So they peaked when? April this year, and it's been downhill ever since. That crazy volume right here. What day? When was that? December of last year. That just wild volume happening. 4 million versus the couple 100,000. I have no idea where they are short wise. Maybe I can. Real estate investment company. Well, I mean, here's the thing. They're a real estate investment company, right? REIT. Real estate's gonna suck real bad for the next while. So they're probably getting hammered. They might be getting hammered more than they should, but everyone's expecting real estate to just be garbage for quite some time. So if you are investing in a company that's investing in real estate, the bottom is yet to come. That's what I'd say. Without knowing whatever short selling weirdness is happening with this, full on real estate is going to go down in all aspects. So I plan on investing in the inverse funds associated with real estate, like DRV, because housing prices are going to go down. Industrial space is going to go down. Commercial space is going to be freaking worthless because everyone's working from home and no one wants to pay rent on those commercial spaces. And storefronts are probably going to get cheaper as well because, let's face it, half the stuff you buy is going to be online. So the folks who are going to have like storefronts that work are going to be your dollar stores and then high-end retailers for rich people who want to get like massages and frosted beers while they get their clothes tailored onto them, stuff like that. So I without looking any further, I am going to avoid companies that invest in real estate until I think it has been hammered down into the ground, and then everything's ready to rebound again. I think we got a ways to go for that. Grandma Barney, Houston is not a quitter. He's an island boy. I'm ready for another snowstorm. I convert overtime to more shares. Never give up. Be an Islander family. Yeah, we're going to get anywhere from 2 inches to 20 inches tonight. It's supposed to snow until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening tomorrow. I don't know, an inch or two out there right now. It's still snowing. Someone asked me to be on a guy's show for tomorrow, and I told them I would love to. But if we get 20 inches of snow, I might not have power. So I may have to postpone if that's the case. So we're Monkey Butt and I. If we get like to like 4 inches, Monkey Butt and I are going sledding, doing some midnight sledding tonight. Right, Monkey? Right, buddy? Yeah. You get to bump on a log. I know you're just a little moper, a little mopey Mopington over here. Thank you, Barney, and good luck if the power does go out. You know, I'll try not to sled over any live power lines for you because you don't want those stories. But my house in particular does pretty well compared to my neighbors. I don't know how the redundancies go, but like I've had that neighbor go out, and I've had that neighbor go out, and I've had power. So, whatevs. All right. Hey, I'm an hour and 11 minutes behind the chat. Might set a record today. Okay. Guitar Stuff Houston, if you had 15 minutes in a secure room with Kenny G and an NDA covering just that conversation so you could be totally honest, what question would you ask him? I don't know if it would take 15 minutes for an explanation, but got one question. One question to ask Ken Griffin. Before I get to that, because I still got to mull that over, my brother's in town for Christmas, and we're chit-chatting, and we're talking about, like, crime pays. It does. Crime pays, like, every single time in our society. You want to be rich? Go commit some horrible financial crimes, and you'll be fine. As long as you don't commit those crimes against rich people. You commit them against the poor people and the average worker, you'll be fine. And the problem is that too many of us had like decent parents and a good upbringing that instilled like values and honesty and a conscience into us. And we don't, even if we can come up, like, I love coming up with schemes. Oh, I love coming up with schemes. But I never do any of them because it's wrong. And I would feel bad, right? Because I want humanity to be better and not worse because of me. I think the folks who are the most successful in this realm don't have a conscience. They're the type of guys who, in their divorce proceedings, there's stories about how they broke a bedpost and then like beat their wives with it. You know, perhaps someone at Citadel that had that in their divorce proceedings. That type of person doesn't care about you. They can't identify. They can't empathize with you. They have zero empathy. They have no conscience. They only respond to punishment. And anything they do, they'll do as long as they know they won't get punished or caught. So if I were to ask someone like Kenny Boy one specific question, locked in a room, NDA, I don't know if it would be particularly like related to finance or not, because we know that he's a lying piece of shit. We know that he's got, as of January last year, he sold $70 billion in stock. He has no plan in ever delivering. It might be more about how he perceives the rest of society, right? Because you have to like think of the rest of society as marks or something to be able to do what he does. Like, we're not people, we're others that are less than. And the only thing we're good for is to squeeze us for like everything we have. And so I guess it might be sort of like a Scrooge situation where you're trying to see, is there a sliver of humanity left in this clown? Or is he a net negative on society forever? Right? That makes sense? Like, can I glean something worthwhile from him? Is there something in there? Is it just a manipulation machine that's just there to like lie, cheat, and steal? Or is there hope? I lean towards he has no hallmarks of humanity in his person, and less towards he can be rehabilitated. But I guess that's where my line of questioning would be to see just what kind of person he actually is on a personal level. Because I know all the other crap. I like to know if someone's redeemable or not. And if they're not redeemable, then, fuck them. Life's too short to have them as a burden of society. Okay. MMTLP'd my shorts. Hey, Houston. Did you catch Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix? Thoughts on Graham Hancock? Also seem like you board games. What's your favorite board game? Not Sailors of Catan. I actually don't get to play board games very often. And I can't remember the names of all the ones that I've played. There was one like called Munchkin or something that was kind of fun. I played this on Saturday night. We played this game that was kind of like Minute to Win It at my friend's birthday. It was kind of fun. I don't remember what it was called, but it's lots of like party, like, cups and ping pong balls and chopsticks and weird little, you gotta scoot a ping pong ball on the floor in a certain amount of time or stuff like that. It was a fun game. I just don't remember what it's called at all. And it got active because we're kind of the youth, and then there's like old people in their 70s, and they're having a hell of a time. Great time playing it. Very active, getting out there. But anyway, Ancient Apocalypse. Graham Hancock is an idiot. There's no science to what he believes. He's one of those guys that are like the Ancient Aliens dudes that it's like, there's no possible way these coconut-brained indigenous people ever built these pyramids themselves. It obviously had to be a more ancient, better civilization or aliens that did it. That seems to be kind of his line of thinking, and it just kind of feeds into that I don't know, patronizing colonist perspective of obviously no society could ever be advanced without us being involved, so it had to be aliens. And yeah, so if you guys don't know, his show is he's a fraud anthropologist, and he goes around the world trying to explain that, like, I don't know, was it 12,000 years ago, a whole series of like comet strikes hit the earth and wiped out ancient civilization. And that we just kind of see these remnants everywhere of this better civilization that got hit by all these things, without ever showing the examples of what he means. So no, I don't watch, like, tell me about the people who actually were there. We have weird enough stuff in the anthropological record that we don't need to have like crazy Ice Age era advanced civilizations. We've got weird enough stuff as it is. Like, bring up a little Google Earth here. Boom, boom, and shaboom. All right, come on, there we go. Okay, so we all know the theory about the land bridge from Asia. So the Ice Age happens, North America, Southern Hemisphere, Asia, they all get covered in huge glaciers because it snows, packs in, makes giant glaciers, land glaciers that cover up much of the land mass. And that stuff doesn't melt, therefore it doesn't flow in the ocean, and the ocean keeps evaporating, making more snow, and the ocean levels drop as the land ice builds up. So you can get to up here in the Bering Sea, and this water is only like 35 feet deep, right? So if the sea level drops by 300 feet, all of this becomes land. And you can easily migrate. Caribou can migrate across it. Humans can migrate across it. It's easy peasy to get from one to the other. So, the theory was Ice Age happens and there's a migration that goes across the land bridge from Asia to the Americas. And that's how the Americas got settled. And you can look at the DNA of the folks that were here when the Europeans landed, made first contact. And yeah, there's legacy DNA with these Asiatic peoples. And you can look at the languages, and you can trace like settlements from 10,000 years ago working their way down where they killed off megafauna, and you can look in caves and huts and see like how they followed this megafauna further and further south and eventually made their way into South America, because there's a land bridge right here connecting Panama to the rest of South America, and then the people populate here. Okay, cool. So starting from maybe 13,000, 14,000 years ago, all of the Americas got settled. Except there's a very, very, very weird thing. You get down to Tierra del Fuego. You get down here, the very southern tip of South America, and there's a group of people that seem to have archaeological evidence that they've been here for 30,000 years. And their DNA is nothing like any of the peoples in the Americas. Their language is nothing like any of the other peoples in Americas. And that this may have been the remnants of an earlier human migration into the Americas, into the Western Hemisphere. Now, you can look at places like Europe, right? And the Europeans largely came from the south and the east, except for your Celtics. You can get to Galicia here in Spain, the edges of like Brittany, Wales, Scotland, Ireland. And you got your Celts and Gaelics all in these places. And these were people that had settled much of Europe. And then as the Romans and the Visigoths and the Huns and everyone else kind of invaded all these places, they pushed them out into further and further. They basically got right up against the ocean and couldn't go any further. And they took everything else they had. These folks were here before these folks. And these folks happened to be in these places before all these folks got there. And that's just kind of how a lot of these migration patterns run. And what they do is they take over their land, they take over their homes, they take over. So it makes it look like, the folks in Europe who have been there the whole time, when really it was a lot of Celts and Gaelics and Neanderthals and everything else that happened to be in these areas. So that same type of thing is very likely to have happened. That, say, 40,000 years ago, there's a land bridge, and a group of people came across, and they, hunted and fished and did all that stuff, and they worked their way south, and they filled up these continents, and then another group came in and kind of pushed those folks further and further and further down and further down over the course of 10,000 years, and they all got stuck down here. And that's all that's left of the original peoples that settled the Western Hemisphere. There's similar things like that happened out in Australia and through Indonesia, is that there seems to be successive waves of folks immigrating these places. Because you got recent immigrations that happened, and you got stuff that like Aboriginals have been here for 40,000 years. Where the hell did they come from? Are they related to Melanesians? Are they related to Papua New Guineans? Where are they from, man? So there are evidence of people that have been in places for a long time, but Graham Hancock's whole notion that these folks are, just incompetent and can't create a civilization is just a bunch of hogwash. There's no aliens. There was no advanced civilization that got wiped out by comets. We'd have the evidence of the comets for sure, because we'd get I'm going the geology of it, but there'd be just massive chevrons formed from the mega tsunamis of land piles, and we'd be like, yeah, boom, comet. So yeah, there we go. That was a nice little diversion. Took us a ways off of there. Okay. I think I missed a super chat while I was just plugging away. I missed a couple of them. Homer's Ghost. Legend margin calls made by JSCC. Thoughts? I have not heard. That's the first I've heard of it, Homer's Ghost, so I have no thoughts. Awesome, if true. That's my thought. And meow meow. The YouTube algorithm is killing it tonight. I'm getting shot down repeatedly. I don't even know what that means. Oh, and I forgot to put my chat on live chat tonight. So if I don't see your chat, it's because I forgot to do that. Sorry. I don't know why it doesn't automatically just put it on there, but that's annoying. Okay. Paraterran's got coordinates for me. Good old bird. Okay. Well, we were just on Google Earth, so I might as well go back. Coordinate me. Boom, boom, boom. Slip slap doodle. Where are we going? We're going to Afghanistan. Is that where we were? Or Iran? I wasn't actually paying attention. So I go down to Street View. So I wasn't really paying attention where I am. So boom. These Street View, just zoom in on some good old Burt action. There ain't nothing there, man. There's no streets. There's ground level. Paratarian, sometimes you give me the worst coordinates. Where am I? Was I in Afghanistan? Where am I? Wasn't even. Let me just look. Let me just see here. Or was I in? I'm Afghanistan. Okay, I'm in Afghanistan. Zooming in. This little town here. Lovely little river. Little town. What is the town called? Sanjin. Operation Achilles Sanjin. Got a big old dry wash. We got some walled farms. And there's no way a Google streetcar is going to become driving through here. They would get taken by the Taliban instant. So, Paratarian, got nothing. Got absolutely nothing there. You did it to me again. You're really good at that. Meow meow. I'm buying Gretchen mole after Moas. Best investment ever. I mean, she's a lovely lady. I'm sure. You know, charity. One of those charity dates, maybe. Get her an auction. All right. All right. Ideas Matter 7707. Houston, you were right. They want to play for time. Kind of think the BD are making it up as they go. Do you think this opens organizations like Finra open to lawsuits? Yes. Yes, it does. Because we don't know what would have happened in those last 2 days, right? The brokers said they were going to force close positions. They said that. They told us that. We've got records saying, yes, we're going to force close positions starting on the 9th or whatever. And then they shut down trading. So if we get a giant cluster from this, Finra is who to blame. They're the regulator who didn't let the brokers close those positions because they shut down. It's their fault. So the brokers can blame Finra all day long. All right? Well, Finra didn't do their job. They just stopped trading. And so, what are we going to do? They're in charge. And so, yeah, they're open to lawsuits all day long. You may not be able to get financial restitution from them because there's rumors or people said that they've got immunity from that. But you can still sue for them to do actions for you and to remediate. So, and they'll probably have to pay like legal fees and stuff if you do win. But that's kind of where we are. We have to make sure that they do their job and they aren't putting their thumb on the scale for their golf buddies. Andrew Stewart, Houston, do you think a lot of people are going to dump their portfolios at a loss for the tax breakups in this coming year? Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you? Especially if you're a holdings company or a large organization, you can take more than the $3,000 loss. You're gonna dump. You'll buy back in at probably even a lower price come January, and you'll be able to get more of it. So, or 30 to 30 days later, so it's not just a wash sale. So that's, yeah, I think that's exactly what they're gonna do. Jason Blackwell, hey Houston, did you hear about the 7-foot-tall psychic that bought a hedge fund? He's tall, medium, the shorts. That one, that's like a pun that you would see on Pearls Before Swine, the newspaper, and then the rat would be coming with a bat for you. Oof. Paratarian, have you read Peruvian Bull's dollar milkshake theory? If not, thoughts on dollar devaluation forming systemic changes of what becomes dominant currency, how the dollar is backed. I've read it. I don't agree with it. I think for the most part, the government and the Fed have doing a pretty darn good job of ensuring that the dollar maintains. The BRICS countries, the countries that are trying to make an alternative, are Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Saudi Arabia, India. Like in those countries, the closest thing you have to democracy is India, and it's run by a fascist who wants to murder 200 million Muslims in the country. Modi is not a friend of democracy. He is a fascist. The RSS, the Saying, all those guys are idolize Hitler. So you got a failing nation in Russia that's belligerent. You've got China that's a totalitarian dictatorship. You've got Iran and Saudi Arabia, which are theocratic dictatorships, and you've got North Korea, which is also a totalitarian dictatorship. So you're not going to get much out of those groups. China is fairly insular, and while I think they would like to have the yuan as a global currency, their current system is very insular. It doesn't really spread it around. What they do spread around is US dollars. So they'll go to Congo and build roads, and they'll lend US dollars to do it. So the Congo has to pay them back in US dollars. Russia is their oil is trading at 40% below market value on the black market, and it's probably going to go even lower because there's about to be sanctions disallowing any European, North American vessels from transporting that oil, which has been happening. Even if it's flagged another nation like Nigeria or Panama or something, if that vessel has ties to an American company, it's not going to be able to move that oil. So and there's going to be an argument over, should we create a currency for these BRICS countries, or should we adopt the currency of one of these countries that already exist? And there's going to be matters of pride and fighting over this. And you've got a whole bunch of greedy autocrats who are all going to want their face on this stuff, and they're never going to be able to agree on anything. And so then what's going to happen? China's going to throw their weight around and piss everyone off. And I don't know. I just don't see. I don't see another currency coming up. And then Dollar Milkshake, the Peruvian bull, is really like big on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's going to collapse. It just is. I mean, Binance is about to go under. A whole bunch of those guys are going to go to jail. Once the bubble of Tether pops and no one can get their cash back from Bitcoin, they're going to be selling it for chump change compared to what they paid for it the past few years. So I don't see that as a takeover. The digital dollar that's going to be experimented with is probably going to keep the dollar on top for a long time. The United States, our biggest export is dollars. That's what we do. We export dollars and we take stuff in. And people are like, oh, that's creates a trade deficit. Who gives a shit? You know how much it costs us to print a dollar? Fucking nothing. The cost of paper. And then we get this huge value out of it, and we ship it off to another country, and they give us all their crap. Right? What do they get out of it? Some dollars. Cool. All right. And that's just how the world runs. There's no other nation in the world that can quite do that at the moment. And everyone has to borrow in US dollars, and they got to pay back in US dollars. And all these countries that have their bonds that are failing are because they can't come up with US dollars. And they need those dollars. And who has the dollars? We've got the dollars. Why? Because we can make them whenever we want. And right now, we don't feel like making them. So everyone's like feeling the pinch of not having US dollars. And there's no viable alternative to it because it's all smoke and mirrors crypto stuff. Or it's, some totalitarian dictatorship whose people are completely oppressed and will probably kill and murder the leader someday. That's not the best system to try and adopt as a global currency. So no, I don't quite buy into his theory. I think the Fed will keep raising interest rates, will push down until inflation is at something reasonable, and then we'll start quantitative easing again. But it's going to be painful for a little while, but we'll have less pain than what they're experiencing in Europe or in Argentina or in Japan or in China, because we have less inflation than all of them. And, it's going to suck, but it's not going to suck as much as it will there. Okay, Geminius, Houston. If Acme went away in Nextbridge, and there were counterfeit shares or lended shares that never closed, are the borrowers still paying daily fees on them? I would assume so. I'm very surprised that lenders didn't go, yeah, give my shares back, blink. Because as it stands now, the lenders don't have anything. They don't have anything. They don't have the. I dropped a little doohickey. Where'd you go? Sorry, I have a little gizmo that I'm always playing with, and I just totally lost it. Good job, Houston. Good job. Well, oh, there it is. I got to fidget with things, so I fidget with this little rolled up Velcro thing all the time. It's like my little fidget thing. So I'm really surprised the lenders didn't recall their shares. I mean, from the sound of it, no one except the retail investors knew what was going on. So, you got Vanguard has like 16 million shares of Acme, right? And I'm sure because they're an index fund, they just buy everything. They've got 10,000 stocks in their index. And, they probably have, let's say, 100 people managing that entire index, right? And they might have, you look at those shares, look at these shares. But for the most part, the entire point of the index fund is just buy everything. And eventually everything just kind of goes up. And so as long as you've got a piece of it all, you're fine. So there's probably no specific person in charge of Acme at the index fund who was like, oh, hey, look at this S1 that's affecting this one little stock in our giant, multi-trillion-dollar portfolio. Maybe we should do a share recall. They probably like just a stack of paper on a desk somewhere, and no one's even gotten to it yet. And they may even know about it now. So like they didn't know they should go, oh, I should recall these 16 million shares. Otherwise, I'm not going to get all the stuff that I'm supposed to get. So yeah, they're probably still paying fees on it. It's probably automated with some computer somewhere, and they're paying their fees for having borrowed Vanguard 16 million shares or whatever. So yeah, but if you sold naked, you aren't paying anything because who'd you borrow from? No one. You just sold something that didn't exist. And then the broker, in a panic, had to like take shares from one of their own customers and use it to close the sale. So they created a synthetic counterfeit inside of their own brokerage to do that. And, then all gets bundled up into swaps and moved around, and life continues on. And it's great to be a criminal. Okay. Roaring Pickle, Hidden Kitty, where does your I end and you begin? The world is an imprint in your eye, communicated to an understanding of your surroundings. How much of the world is in fact, and how much is interpretation? Or how much of the world is fact and how much is interpretation? Man, that is quite the existential question there. There's been lots of experiments that show that our brains ignore stuff all the time. We never see it because it's inconsequential to us in the immediate. But it does still get recorded in the subconscious a lot. So you can hypnotize somebody and ask them to recount what was in a room, and they can tell you exactly what was in that room. But you ask their conscious brain, like, I have no idea, whatever. So there are those two things at play in the human brain. I've talked about before, like we're like 3-pound bags of fat that just play human simulator all day long. We are like, you imagine a mech warrior, right? Put this human in this big giant machine, and they're like, that's just the little fat in our head doing exactly that with our bodies. Like, you are a walnut playing dog simulator. I am a cantaloupe playing human simulator. That's that's what we are. My little walnut. Yeah, my little walnut. I'm gonna talk to you. You have to ask a neuroscientist about this. Maybe someday I'll get my my friend Stephanie on here, and she'll be able to pontificate more about the human brain. She's a PhD in neuroscience. She'll be able to explain a lot better than I can. In your opinion, are sensible gun policies and effective climate change legislation possible within a decade in this political landscape. Ha ha! Oh man, want me to step into deep? I don't think the U.S. government is capable of creating meaningful climate change legislation. I just don't. I think we are a government that can only respond to disaster and not be proactive to these things. We won't do anything until it breaks. That's just our nature. So I don't think the U.S. will do anything. I think European nations will do more, and it will probably be less about climate change and more about how to get off the reliance of natural gas. So, because we saw just cutting off Russia from natural gas, just how bad it is for the European economy, they're going to have to figure out other ways to get by. And that'll probably result in more advancements in nuclear fusion and things like that. Germany should literally open up all their nuclear power plants again. That's probably the smartest thing for them to do, is just get uranium, buy uranium, fill up those nuclear power plants, get them pumping again. So you don't have to have so many things burning all the time. As far as gun legislation, I understand people, they want their own guns. Cool, whatever. But I think the well-regulated militia portion of it should be regulated. Like, if you join the National Guard or the military, and like, this is your weapon, right? If you lose that weapon, you're going to Leavenworth. Right? like, where's your weapon? I don't know. Okay, somewhere. You're getting court-martialed, bud. Right? They're going to train you on that thing. You're going to get qualified on various weapons. And as you get qualified on more weapons, you can, you can't just like join the army and all of a sudden they give you an Abrams tank. No, you're going to go through a year of training and learn how to use the Abrams tank. If you get an M4, they're going to teach you how to take it apart, clean it, be safe, use it properly, store it properly, all these things. And that I don't see why that shouldn't be for anyone else who wants to own a firearm in the civilian life. You get qualified on the various weapons you want to own. You want to own a 22? Cool. You go to a class, learn how to use a 22, learn how to take it apart, learn how to put it back together again, learn safety, learn, all the little things. You want to own a handgun? Sure. Take a class on how to use that Beretta or whatever. License, insured, registered. That seems like a no-brainer to me. 600,000 guns a year in the United States are stolen from their legal owners. 600,000. 600,000 guns are stolen from the legal owners each year in the United States. And who steals a gun? A criminal. So immediately, you're looking at 600,000 guns every year entering the criminal marketplace to be used in nothing but crime. Because if a criminal has a gun, that's a crime, right? So, over 10 years, that's 6 million. Over 50 years, that's 30 million guns end up into the criminal markets. So, requiring safe storage, requiring insurance on those weapons. If your guns are stolen, you obviously weren't securing them properly, so maybe you shouldn't be allowed to own guns, right? Like, I'm a responsible gun owner, but someone broke the window of my car, reached in my glove box, and stole my gun. Then you probably shouldn't be the type of guy who should own a gun. That you failed the regulations, therefore you don't get to be a part of the militia anymore. Fitness. You should be able to run a mile in less than 16 minutes. Other things that would be, if you're a member of the militia, you should have to follow. I have lost quite a few people in over the last decade to gun violence, and people around me, and a Nazi with a swastika carved into his AR-15 blew away my little sister's best friend at Parkland. My neighbor was gunned down at the concert in Las Vegas. My friend's son, his cousin was high on drugs, came in and put 13 rounds in her son. A young woman I used to commute with beautiful lady. We have little chats as we walk to the ferry, and one day she wasn't on the ferry, and it's because her boyfriend, who she had, or ex-boyfriend, she had a restraining order against, walked into her office at the University of Washington and blew her away. These are the things that happen in the U.S. that shouldn't happen. We've in Washington, we've created some red flag laws, which are great because if someone has a domestic violence order against them, restraining order, they someone is talking about suicide or other violence, that gives the right to like take the guns for a while and evaluate them and see what type of mental state they're in, if they should have these weapons of destruction. But I don't think I think after Sandy Hook, when they just blew away a whole bunch of 5-year-olds, 20 of them, and the United States government didn't do anything about it, I don't think there's much hope that we'll ever do anything about it, and that we're just gonna live with this, and it sucks. And the rest of the world is completely flabbergasted every single time we hear about a Walmart getting blown away or a synagogue or another school. It's pathetic. We are really pathetic that we value our little toys that can kill everyone more than the people they're supposed to protect with those toys. I don't know. I don't think it's possible to just be like, oh, we're going to ban all the guns. But I do think it's possible that we regulate them. And let's say we regulate them, right? Whether we have mandatory training classes, just like you're going to get your driver's license. You learn how to use it. You take a test on it and you qualify for it, and then you get licensed, and when you buy it, you register. And then you have to get insurance on top of that, liability insurance, because if your gun gets stolen and used, or your toddler, pulls it out of a drawer and blows someone away, there needs to be some liability there, and there has to be a pool of money to help take care of medical bills, funerals, lawsuits, all that stuff. Let's just get that out of the way. So, and if you're, if we do have those like 5 things, and it turns out you're in possession of an unregistered weapon, then obviously you got that weapon illegally. Criminal, right? If you aren't insured, just like if you're driving a car and you're uninsured, they're going to take your license from you, which means you are being regulated as a member of the militia. They're like, all right, soldier, you no longer qualify. Get back there, make sure you get insurance. You got to go through all these classes, so on and so forth. And if you can't, how about this? Stop making guns. We have 400 million guns in this country. Just 6% of gun owners, 6% of gun owners in the United States, and only like 30% of families have guns at this point. So 30% of households, 6% of individuals who own guns own 25% of all the firearms on Earth in the United States. There's something like 3% of gun owners own 155 million of the guns in the United States. They almost half, or just 3% of the guns, because they're own 10 to 20 guns each or more. That's ridiculous. That's a lot of them might be museum pieces or whatever, but there's also a lot of guys that have like 25 machine guns. Okay, cool. Great. Awesome. Your kid needs braces. So, stop making guns. We got plenty. The price of guns go up. And if you get caught, with a gun you shouldn't have, they take it from you and they just melt it down. That's one less gun. So the price of guns is going to go up even more. And if you get caught with a gun, you're committing a crime with a gun, that's it. You're toast. You're done. No more. So it'll be like Japan, where the Yakuza know that getting caught with a gun committing a crime that's it. They won't do it. The Yakuza will commit all their crimes and they won't touch a gun because they know they could like beat someone to death with a stick, and the punishment will be less than beating someone to death with like the butt of a gun. So that's it. Anthony Wilson III, I see him in here. He's always super right wing and always wrong. But how many First Amendment sentences are you allowed to make? Too many? Words are dangerous. No. And I've explained this in the past. The Second Amendment was written after the Constitution. A well-regulated militia right? That's the first part of the Second Amendment. Well, where do they regulate the militia? Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 and 16 is where the regulation of the militia is. And I can bring this up again. I can show you in here. Exactly. Article 1, Section 8, Constitution. Boom, boom. Turn off the Google Earth. Okay. Article 1, Section 8, Library of Congress. Clause. Oh, those are not the right clauses. We get to. Just give me the actual Constitution. Jurisprudence, background spending. I don't want clause 1, 2. I want clause 15, 16. Just give me the actual. Just give me the friggin'. Why is it so hard to get the actual? 15, there we go. 15, 16. That's what I want. Okay, so you want a regulated militia. Clause 15, to provide for calling forth the militia to execute laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, repel invasions. So basically it's Congress saying, hey, we can call up the militia to do this stuff. All right, 16. Give me 16. There we go. 16, to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia. This means if you are a member of the militia, did you get your weapons from Congress? Right? No? Then you're probably not a member of the militia. Because right there, Clause 16 says Congress organizes you, Congress disciplines you, means they train you, and they provide your weapons. So, when the Second Amendment was written after this part of the Constitution, and talking about a regulated militia, and Clause 16 clearly states how the militia is regulated, then the arms they're referring to are the arms that are provided by the U.S. government to you as a member of the militia, man. Right? So, and for part governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of officers. So, did your state appoint you to a position in the militia? If not, are you in fact a member of the militia? Right? And the authority of training in the militia according to discipline prescribed by Congress. So have you been training according to how Congress has prescribed that training? I mean, you can throw in the 1913 Militia Act, which states that any person between the ages of, 17 and 47 are part of the, what's the term they use for it? The, remember the exact term. It's basically like militia in waiting. So with that state, that the guy who blew away my neighbor in Las Vegas was like 67 years old. If he is not eligible to be called up due to his age, is he in fact a member of the militia? According to the 1913 Militia Act, no. So does he have a right to bear arms then? Right? If you can't be a member of the militia in any way, shape, or form, the regular militia, I think is the term that they want for, then you essentially, under the laws written in the United States, you technically don't have a right to bear arms. So I think if you are going to regulate weapons, you're going to have to address the fact that the first clause of the Second Amendment, talking about the well-regulated militia, is referring to clauses 15 and 16 of the Constitution about how the militia is regulated. And that's just how you're going to do it. I don't think we're ever going to regulate crap in this country. I think we'll just blow each other away and then choke on the poisons that come out of our combustion engines, and that'll be it. But if you want to talk about the originality of the Constitution, you got to look at Clause 15 and 16, which clearly states how the militia is organized and how it's regulated. Because remember, authority of training the militia according to discipline of Congress, to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia. So they talk about how it's armed and organized and everything else by the U.S. government. Okay, now I got the 2,000 new subscribers who are like, "But he's not talking about stocks now. This is bullshit." No, we talk about everything here. I can't ever stay on one thing forever. Life's too boring, man. There's too much to it. I already have a bunch of people on Twitter like, stick to stocks. Quit talking about politics. I'm like, politics is everywhere, dude. Did you guys read about George Santos today? So George Santos got elected to Congress in New York. He's originally from Brazil. He's a young man. He's like a decade younger than me. Looks kind of like shit. I can't imagine that he's only a decade younger than me. I thought he was like in his 50s. Turns out he never went to college. He lied about going to college. He never worked for any of the investment banks they claimed to work for. And he led a life of petty crime before coming to America. And his campaign was funded by the Russian mafia. and he's about to be seated in Congress. So we got a foreign-born dude who's a con man who lied about his entire pedigree, and his entire campaign was paid for by the brother of Vladimir Putin's chief advisor. That's what we meant. Like, if you don't want crime committed by the financial markets, maybe we should look at the type of people who are going to vote on this stuff, and if they are in fact financial criminals themselves. Like we got to address these things, dude. It's the only way you're going to have change that's meaningful, and yeah, the politics are in everything. So, you guys might not agree with me. That's okay. You're allowed to not agree with me. But at least I can fill your brain with information and make you go, huh, I hadn't thought about it that way before. And hopefully some of you can fill my brain with information and make me think about something in a way I hadn't thought about before. Yeah. All right. Now I'm like 2 hours behind in the chat. It's 10:57 here. I'm at like 9:08 p.m. in the chat. This might be the furthest behind I've ever been in my entire life. So did I miss any super chats while I was going off about nothing? Yes, I did. Okay. So I got MM. Meow meow. They filmed Escape from New York in St. Louis. They changed nothing. They just started filming. That's all they needed for a futuristic hellscape. White flight in St. Louis is a big deal. You guys ever look at the population statistics of St. Louis? Absolutely crazy. Remember they had the World 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. All right. So, okay. Here we go. So St. Louis peaked. 1950 had a population of 856,000 people, which I think at the time made it like the third or fourth largest city in America. And by 2020, it was 301,000. So they've lost 550,000 people over the past 50, 60, 70 years, right? And it was in the 800,000s for quite a few decades, right? I mean, the population of St. Louis in 1900 and in 1880 was 50,000 more than it is today. That's pretty crazy to think about. It was one of the largest cities in America in 1880. And today, 856,000 down to 301,000. So you have areas, especially white flight in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The entire neighborhood just got abandoned. And people moved out to the suburbs, and there was nothing. So you can still, to this day, like buy homes in these abandoned parts of St. Louis for like $1. It's really, really wild to think about. And the population of the county as a whole has, and the rest of the county has actually gone up. So you can see 1850, everyone's in St. Louis. You got 31,000 people in the rest of the county. 1950, you have 850,000 in St. Louis, 400,000 in the county. But as the population of the city drops, the county starts to go up. So you have now more than 1 million people in the greater county of St. Louis County and 300,000 in the downtown area. So you're still able to support a Major League Baseball team, hockey, things like that, because there's people now in the surrounding area. Detroit's the same way. Detroit, I can do Detroit population by decade. Boom, here we go. Okay, give me the list. Show me the list. There is the list. Okay, so this is by year. So Detroit peaked 1950, 1.8 million. Today, 632,000. So they've lost 1.2 million people in Detroit. Same thing. Deindustrialization, white flight to the suburbs. Cleveland. Oops. Cleveland population by decade. There we go. Scroll down here. Cleveland's population peaked in 1950, 914,000 people. They hit 900,000 also in 1930, but the war effort probably took care of a lot of people. Now, today, 367,000. So they've lost 500 and almost 50,000 people off their population in the last 70 years. But the greater county, the Cuyahoga County, I think is where Cleveland is, right? So guys, correct me if I'm right or wrong about that. County, same size population. Like people, like as a whole, everyone just kind of left the city and moved into the suburbs. And then the cities, these abandoned wastelands of factories and crappy houses that no one's maintained. The worst is probably Gary, Indiana, which is like the biggest ghost town in America. Here we go. So Gary, Indiana. Where are you? Was never that large of a city, but 175,000 in 1970, 68,000 today. So they've lost 100,000 people in what is a fairly small city. And they went from the 74th largest city in America to the 552nd. So if you take a trip to Gary, Indiana, if you're in Chicago, drive out to Gary, Indiana, and then watch your car get completely put on blocks and shredded apart by the population that's left. But there's theaters, malls, factories, homes, just straight up abandoned. It's pretty crazy. Flint, Michigan, the same way. Lots of this through the Rust Belt as people fled the industrial areas in the inner cities and moved out to the suburbs. Just crazy. And so if you need to film like dystopia, you need to there's enough dystopia happening in Detroit that when they filmed the RoboCop movies, they just used Detroit. But Detroit, we've got Detroit. Okay. And then MC Cheeks. This Wile E. Coyote is sad he missed out on Acme Best Sympathy Play. Ooh. I mean, if Acme plays out, then there's going to be just a boatload of investment into other meme stocks. And if those don't get triggered by the margin calls that result from Acme paying out, then the reinvestment into those things are going to trigger a lot of it. I mean, we saw Ryan Cohen move a stock price like $50 with a 100,000 share order done slowly through limit orders on a lit market. Now imagine what will happen if you've got 64,000 knuckle draggers like us doing exactly the same thing with like hundreds of billions of dollars. It's going to be nuts. Absolutely stupid nuts. And a lot of the hedge funds and market makers who suppress the stock by naked shorting might not exist and might not be able to keep up. So there's going to be some weird stuff that happen if they give us what we're due. Lots of weird stuff there, MC. Just in my head, for people that are getting AST NextBridge shares, how much are they getting per share? 1-to-1, right? We're talking about money. They're getting 1-to-1, one Acme to one NextBridge. That's it. The NextBridge will exist. But you're talking about cash? I'm not getting cash for it. They won't be getting any cash until NextBridge does something that generates cash. Either they become an oil company that's pumping oil and giving out regular dividend in the future, or they take all those assets they have, they sell them for a boatload, and then give everybody cash for their shares, and that's it. The company no longer exists. The estimations for that range from like $30 to $120. I saw a Hopium one that said that the sale price would be about a quarter of the value of what is in the ground, which would mean like $400 and something per share, which I think that's just a little high. I don't think it's gonna be that high. I think 1 to 5% of the value in the ground is probably likely, which then 30 to 120 bucks per share. Meow Meow, Gary, Indiana was a company town. Definitely was a company town. Yep. I mean, a lot of them. I'm all through there. Your Ithaca, New York's, your Flint, Michigan's, your Bloomington, Indiana's, Peoria, Illinois. Like there's a lot of them that were like little company towns back in the day that automation and moving factories overseas just decimated. Black Heavyweight, a rep at Schwab, told me this won't be all sorted out until February. I won't be sorted out by then either. I mean, like, there's 165 million next bridge, and there's hundreds of millions. Some are saying 2 billion synthetic shares. I don't know how you're gonna make that Hanukkah miracle of 165 million shares spread out over 2 billion somehow. I just don't see it happening. I see it as being a shit show until a judge finally steps in and says, fix this. And that just might be what we're waiting for. We might just be waiting for that fix this moment. And there you have it. Okay. Paratarian got to meet a top-tier Lehman Brothers chairperson in exclusive Nashville Members Club. Explained Jimmy's situation. Seaminster said, sounds like you'll be a member here soon enough. All right. Yeah, I dig it. I dig it. Yeah, get that. I would love to start my own private club, just for have the dues and everything else. Just rub elbows with people I actually care about, and they can all be members. And then people I don't care about can just pay a lot to join us. My friends get to join for free. I'm not that big on you, so you're $50,000 a month. Does that sound cool? All right, I'll make you'll get charged based upon the aura you give off to me and how much I like you. And everyone can come. It's just I'll charge you different levels to join. Keith Dixon, Houston, you keep saying that you can be bought. Assuming that happens contingent upon you continuing the show, do us a solid and post sponsored by Citadel sign your bookshelf. That would be something like that. I've been trying to come up with a good code phrase for you guys to let you know when I've sold out, right? Because I have a price. You guys have a price. We'll have a price. But I do have the integrity that I'm going to let you know when it's happened. So you go, Houston got his bacon. He knows. He's signed them whatever NDA. He's probably filed for whistleblower status somewhere. But if that comes along, I gotta come up with a good phrase. And it can't be a phrase goofy ass phrase like my fish wears a mattress. I'll say on the show. It's got to be something very specific and can only be used in that context, right? Because I don't want to make you guys oh crap, Houston got bought out when I'm just riffing, right? So I'll come up with something for you. I'll workshop it, and if you see that phrase up here where Next Level Chimneys is, or down here where Josh Pet Pals Tennessee current ad is, then And by the way, if you want yourself up on the board here, $50, and you'll remain there until the next person pays $50. So advertise whatever you want. Your OnlyFans, your I don't know, your shoehorn company, your charity, your picture. A lot of people put pictures of pets. I've got a whole stack. All the ads so far have been paid for. So these are all right. These ones are Next Level Chimneys in case I miss out on some. But I've got the Everts Foundation. I've got I've got Sandy, the pup. So I've got Sandy, the pup was up here. I've got another one of a viewer's cousin from the Philippines here. Put them up. I've got someone wanted everyone to vote. They paid for that. I've got raising money for uniforms for Ukrainian soldiers. I've got let's see here. I had more. I've got pictures of other people's fluffy puppies who, memorials of the puppies that passed away. These good boys and girls who passed away among being memorialized. So a lot of folks putting things up here on the board. So if you want your board, your pup, your kid, your whatever, be memorialized up there, throw it out there. You're just happy. Hey, that's my husband. He's a total handsome dude. I want him up on the screen. Send it my way. $50. Throw it up there. And until someone else pays $50, you'll get that spot. So that's my advertisement for the show. Okay. Michael Steegs, Houston, do you think No Labs is also turned to a squeeze play? Oh, definitely. They're getting hammered down. They've got really good results from their first round of human testing of their device. Now they're moving on to phase 2 testing, which I think involves the actual, like, they had the sensors they were testing. They put it in people's armrests, their chairs, right? They put an armrest, and they'd sit them down, and it would measure their blood glucose level. And then they would take a blood test and compare it to what the machine was measuring, and they'd calibrate and test it that way. Now they're going to make the actual little device, like the little Fitbit bracelet that goes around the wrist, and they're going to test, see how that behaves versus actual glucose level blood monitoring. And then it goes into phase 3, which is, the finalized product, and then hopefully approval stamp, and then they become a $100 billion company. So if they get FDA approval for their device in the end, then game over, son. Like they'll literally be making like $30 billion a year in, year out off of that device, and the shorts are screwed. Each one of those shares worth $2,000 of where they are today. So it's a bad move to bet against them, I think, at this point. Only BLSP Black Death. Morning, Houston. If not already mentioned, can you give us a rundown of Adam, Aaron, and dilution? Before I do that, I'm going to give BLSP Black Death an absolute thank you so much. This is Marius. He's been cutting up the show into little clips and posting them on the YouTube channel, something that I should have been doing for like a year and a half, but I never have the time or the energy or the know-how. And he's been an absolute wonder. Now short clips of me can be shared. And that has resulted in the actual first time to have actual growth in the number of subscribers in like a year. Across 20,000 subscribers this week. Oh, it's 18,000 and change for a year and a half. So thank you, Marius. You're absolutely wonderful. Okay. I didn't do much on the rundown thing. I basically chastised Adam Aaron for proving me right and that he's terrible at what he does. The stock prices are like under $1, and he sells $125 million worth. Like, if you're going to dilute the float of these things, why didn't you sell them when it was like $7, $6.50 or whatever? Why are you waiting until it's 87 cents? And then only just servicing the interest on these loans and not paying any of them off, because you're not making enough money to pay them off. You got $5 billion worth of loans, bud. You need to be selling this crap for $10 and pay off the principal balances of these loans and just getting rid of them. And you can have a profitable company. Instead, you're diluting the float. You're lowering the price on this thing even more. And all you're doing is like servicing the interest rates on these loans, and you're not accomplishing anything. Dumb. So dumb. So unbelievably stupid. Why do you fail me like this constantly? That's what I have to say. Adam Aaron, you suck at this so bad. Okay, so he just allowed a whole bunch of shorts to close positions for $6 cheaper than they were shorting it. And cool. Awesome. Cool, awesome. That's what I have to say there, Marius. Cool. All right. Let's set a moment of silence for AMC. Okay. All right. Oh, crap. I am 2 hours exactly behind in the chat. I haven't even gotten to the start of the show yet in the chat. This is the furthest behind in history I have ever been on this show. You could take this as a moment of note. Put it down in your diary. Dear diary, today Houston got an hour and 45 minutes into a show and was 2 hours behind in the chat exactly. Ugh. Well. Well. Okay. Let's see if... oh, well, there goes the reset in the chat because I scrolled down too far. And that means I probably just cut off like an hour and a half of chat. So how far back can that go? Yeah, that cut off an hour and 10 minutes the chat. So now I'm back to 10:25 p.m. is the earliest chat I can see. Houston couldn't find a tree in the forest. Is this when I was at Parataran's terrible coordinates again? He sends me out to the middle of nowhere and there's nothing to see there. Yeah, I do terrible with Parataran's coordinates. That's just how it rolls. Okay. Lilo, is there a benefit to claiming $10,000 loss as a regular retail investor? I'm down 50% in broker account. You only get to claim $3,000 as a retail investor, so that's as much as you can claim. I think you can roll over into the next year, possibly. Might talk to an accountant about that. I'm not giving advice. I am not an accountant, but I do think you could possibly roll over losses in the next year if you don't have giant gains next year. But I would definitely talk to a CPA about that. But no, you can only claim up to $3,000 on personal income taxes. So that's why a lot of rich people form holdings companies and family funds so they can claim huge losses if they need to. Can you talk about fusion and the potential implications and applications it may provide? Oh, we love to do that in this show. We love fusion. Oh boy. Okay, so the main fuel that's going to be used for commercial fusion is going to be helium-3. And we get helium-3 from the moon. We've known about it since the 60s. It's been theorized that we can use it, but no one had a viable system for creating cold fusion until now. Now we can create cold fusion. Lawrence Livermore Laboratories has done it several times since 2014. We have this company in France that has these weird toroids that like smack into each other and fuse things. They don't have quite a way of harnessing the energy yet, but they know that it's producing more than what they're putting in. And now we're looking at this giant, the European Union is doing a giant fusion reactor experiment sometime soon, where they hope to be doing like, I don't know, pentawatts or something of energy out of it. But essentially, without getting into too much detail of the specifics of how much energy it takes to put in to cause nuclear fusion and energy to get out, but essentially there's this graph. And the lighter elements produce a lot more energy than it takes to fuse them together. So your hydrogen, helium, and stuff are on the easier to fuse side of things. And when you get into heavier elements, it takes a lot more energy to fuse them together than the energy you get out. So it's a vanishing return on that. We like helium-3 because helium-3 is inert, meaning you can scoop up as much as you want it. It's not going to combine with anything. You have to worry about doing like hydroelectrolysis to break it apart like you do trying to take hydrogen out of water. And so it stores really easily. It's not volatile. And when you fuse it together, it creates heavier elements that are not radioactive. So there's no greenhouse gases that come out of it, and there's no radioactive elements that come out of it. Just a whole bunch of energy that needs to be contained in these big like magnetic fields. and then channeled into the electrical grid somehow. So the problem with helium, since it is inert, it's a noble gas, it does not bond with anything, is that the minute helium enters our atmosphere, it starts to float away because the atmosphere is very dense, helium is very light, helium wants to float on top of the atmosphere. So it rises to the top of the atmosphere where it gets hit with solar winds and it gets energized and reaches escape velocity and disappears into space forever. And we lose, every time a helium balloon, like a child lets go of the helium balloon, it floats up. It goes up to the point where the balloon expands so much it explodes, all the helium gas goes to the top of the atmosphere and disappears forever. It's gone. Never to return. On the moon has no atmosphere. So where's the helium going to go? Right? It can get hit the solar wind and blown away, but there's no atmosphere for it to rise to and get up there and get tangentially blasted. But the sun is giving off helium-3 all the time. It's a result of lots of hydrogen fusion reactions inside the sun. Helium-3 gets blasted out through radiation pressure from the sun and output into space and is part of the solar winds going outwards throughout our solar system. And it can hit our atmosphere and just kind of goes doing and then keeps going out into space. But in the moon, you've got a whole bunch of dust on the moon, lots of little pukas and little scars from micro asteroids and things like that just create all this surface area and all these little particles of dust. And this helium-3 comes from the sun and just smacks into the dust on the moon where it statically bonds to the dust, like socks out of the dryer. And it stays there forever. I mean, there's been helium-3 bombarding the surface of the moon for the last 4 billion years and change. So you got 4 billion years of constant bombardment of solar rays on the surface of the moon, collecting all this helium-3. And we can go, get in a little spaceship, fly to the moon, take that dust and go, and shake all the helium-3 out of it. And then stick it in a big gas canister, and then put that sucker on a spaceship and take it back to Earth. Now, the fuel efficiency of nuclear fusion is so fantastic that to power the entire United States, to power the 330 million plus people at our first world power consumption for 1 year takes about 25 tons of helium-3. So 25 tons of helium-3 is, more or less one fuel tank you'd see on a fuel truck driving on the highway. You can just imagine like how much oil we use, how much coal we use, how much uranium we use, how much natural gas we use to power the United States for a year. And we could do that with one fuel truck of helium-3 and some fusion reactors. That is incredible amount of energy efficiency and output from that. So considering how much energy the United States uses, the United States is 4% of the global population, but we use 25% of the energy. Right? We are greedy little fuckers. We use so much energy. It is absolutely insane how much. I mean, I've got heaters and lights and cameras and computers and cell phones and, televisions. And I got all these first world things just going, sucking up energy. And I'm got to get it cheap because I'm in Washington. It's all from hydroelectric dams. We don't have to worry about like paying for coal and crap like that. So it's cheap here. The rest of the country, not as cheap. But we use 25% of all the energy consumption in the entire world, and we're only 4% of the population. There's enough proven reserves on the moon that we can power all 8 billion people on Earth at American energy consumption levels for the next 10,000 years. So, when people talk about fusion being the fuel of the future, it is most definitely the fuel of the future. It'll take very little of it, give us incredible amounts of energy, and it'll make the energy freakishly cheap overall, right? Because, lunar mission, it's going to cost a couple $1 billion to get to the moon. We got a base, it costs a few $100 billion to have that base. We got a couple of guys who pay, maybe $1 million a year equivalent to go and shiggle up some sand and throw it into a container and ship that container back. And, what we need is, I don't know, a dozen of those containers a year shipped to the planet. So, once we set up colonies, once we set up that stuff, let's say it costs $50 billion a year, right? To like get to the moon, get that stuff, bring it back. 50 billion a year, and then we can distribute that helium-3 to whatever power plants we need in the entire globe. Whomp. No more burning oil, no more burning gas, no more burning coal, no more fission nuclear power plants. Wouldn't even need solar or wind at that point, right? And just the oil market alone is like a couple $1 trillion a year. Because we got to drill holes all over the place. You got to ship. We got to create this incredible infrastructure, move it around. We got all these gas stations everywhere. If all of a sudden we don't need any of the infrastructure, because we can just have, a couple of glassfuls of helium-3 to power our entire city for a year. You don't need to have like giant storage tanks and EPA regulators and, pipelines and all that stuff. It's just simple, man. It's going to bring down the cost of energy incredibly. We won't have to worry about CO2 production anymore because we got next generation battery tech coming along that will allow us to have like 3,000-mile charge in our cars. So it won't be charging every 50 feet with coal-fired plants from West Virginia. So it won't be producing CO2 at any meaningful levels through any combustion process whatsoever. It's going to be pretty remarkable. And it's going to be probably the most important thing for reducing our carbon footprint I can think of. We'll be producing carbon footprint in our like few launches we do a year to get to the moon and back. And that will pale in comparison to, 3 billion people getting in their cars and driving every day, or the coal fire plants that are firing 24 hours a day. So the drawbacks to our nuclear fusion future are going to be who controls fusion. This is kind of what my master's thesis was about these loopholes in space law that can really end up being Murphy's Law. Like, if a problem can happen, it's going to happen. And we could end up with a single country controlling it all. Like, let's say China gets there first and make sure that no one else has a successful mining operation. And so we have to buy everything through China. And all of a sudden, quickly, oil-producing countries collapse to nothing. The United States doesn't have shit. We are beholden to our Chinese overlords for the next 10,000 years. Or say Jeff Bezos gets there first, and Jeff Bezos manages to capitalize on stuff, or Elon Musk, or maybe the U.S. government, and someone capitalizes on this and creates a monopoly, and there's nothing anyone else can do about it. Because, oh hi buddy, yes, look at you. You're like ready for the show to be over, and you want to go out and play in the snow. I can tell it from your face. That's what you want. The way international space law is set up, there really isn't any mining claim rights established. There's really nothing to govern anyone from being a dick in space. And if you come from a country that never signed the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, you're not governed by it. So if you're a country like Libya, okay, Elon Musk, and I know I whip out my crystal ball a lot and I make predictions, and quite a few of them seem to really hit hard. In my master's thesis, my thesis advisor made me take out Elon Musk's name in my example. So I just put in like a generic space company pioneer. And but my original thesis was Elon Musk is one inconvenience away from becoming a Bond villain. That was kind of a large subject in my thesis. And my reasoning was he's an asshole and a grifter, and something's going to go wrong at some point, and he might lose his NASA contracts. He might lose his security clearance. He might, lie about safety records of a particular rocket, and it kills people or something. And the U.S. government goes, yoink. And if the U.S. government takes the space contracts, SpaceX is done, right? So maybe Elon says, well, fuck you. Ruin my space company, take my contracts. Yeah, I'm gonna pick up all my company. I'm gonna move it to Libya. So there. So he picks up all SpaceX. He moves all his engineers and everything, and he goes to Libya. He gets some sort of crazy deal from the Libyan government to put SpaceX over there. And Elon's like, all right, Libya, you're not a member of the 1967 Space Treaty. You're not beholden to any of these international laws. So you know what, baby? The part of the 1967 treaty that says no nation or man can claim ownership of a celestial body, you don't care. We're going to launch we're going to go to the moon, and I'm going to claim this land for Libya and Elon Musk. And if he gets there first, and he starts mining helium-3, right, and shipping it back to Earth, it's going to cost $1 trillion for anyone to do anything about it, right? Like, you've got to mount a giant land war, you got to mount a space war. You don't have the equipment to mount a space war. You know how much it costs to develop the technology to get to the moon and back? You're looking at hundreds of billions of dollars investment just to go police Elon Musk in Libya. But you don't have international law that can do that. So you have to go spend time at the UN trying to be like, well, we're going to hold Libya to these rules that they never agreed to, all this stuff. It's going to be just a giant disaster. So what we need, and we need to be proactive about this, and the international community and the space powers need to be proactive about this, we need to create essentially a space police force and a criminal court for space. Because when we go into space to mine this stuff, it is not going to be Captain Hero of the Air Force doing the mining. Captain Hero of the Air Force is your Magellans and Columbuses and Amerigo Vespucci's and stuff. These are the guys that travel around and like pose for pictures, and they're like, I was the first to do it. But they're not going to go spend a year on the moon, digging holes with a shovel. That's going to be some poor schlub from a favela in Brazil who's promised fortunes and is treated like garbage, and he's going to be sent into space where he's going to like lose all his bone density and get weird like brain swelling conditions and rashes and all sorts of crap as a result of being in low gravity. And he's going to get radiation poisoning from being bombarded by solar rays and cosmic rays. And we're just not gonna we're gonna care. Why? Because that's exactly what we did when we settled new worlds. We had the Captain Heroes of the Air Force at the time. Our Amerigo Vespucci's and Magellans and Sir Francis Drake and all these dudes that traveled the world and made first contact with tribes, whatever. But the people who came afterwards, those were the dregs of society. We needed them to like mine things and plant cotton and grow bananas and do whatever else it is they do. And they were not the upper tiers of society who filled those roles. And that's what space is going to be. We're going to have colonies in space made up of really poor people doing really shit work in very unhealthy conditions. And the International Outer Space Treaty says that anyone who goes to space is an envoy of peace, which makes them a diplomat, and they have diplomatic immunity, which means only their home country can charge them with a crime, right? So let's say China has a big giant colony on an asteroid. They're mining gold and platinum and all sorts of stuff out of the asteroid. But all the workers on the asteroid, we'll go with the favela from Brazil, are Brazilian. And they're up there, and there's essentially no laws because the Chinese technically aren't allowed to punish the Brazilians because they're diplomats. But if a Chinese person kills a Brazilian, that Chinese person can only be tried in China. And the Chinese government's like, yeah, well, that's just some Brazilian slumdog. Who cares? Right? Then Brazilians go, oh, but that's one of our people. And China's like, tough shit, dude. I control the global supply of gold and helium-3. So fuck you. It's going to create crazy international rows. Russia. Russia has an incredible space program. Part of my thesis was about them having also a competent military, but we've seen that part go wrong. But Russia makes all their money off of oil and gas and metals, right? So if all of a sudden we're getting all of our energy from the moon and all of our metals from asteroids, Russia has no economy. But under international law, they have diplomatic immunity. So let's say Jeff Bezos has a big old mining operation going on. They're mining gold, they're mining helium-3, they're mining whatever. And they're going to take a shipment to Earth, and the Russian spaceship comes along and goes, give me all your gold. And the space astronauts are like, oh, holy shit, it's the Russian army. Here's our gold. Well, Russia just got that gold. They brought it back to Earth. They can now sell it. And there's nothing Jeff Bezos can do about it. Why? Because Russia has diplomatic immunity. They can only be tried by other Russians. And if the entire Russian government is based upon space piracy, just like it's based upon the mafia now, they're not going to do anything about it, man. So, while the benefits of cold fusion are going to be fantastic, the real life implications of how we get that energy could be space wars. We're looking at space wars, dude. And I see the word the expanse go past there. The authors of that did a very good job sort of breaking down the colonial structures that will be in place. It only takes a couple of generations, not even like 3 generations, to break down colonial rule. It happens everywhere. I mean, just look at the United States. The Brits essentially really had a large wave of their subjects, come after 1620 when the Pilgrims came in. They tried Jamestown, it didn't quite stick. But after the Pilgrims were successful, then we had wave after wave after wave after wave of Brits, and then other immigrants came from elsewhere. But 1620 pretty much established a permanent British colony in North America. And by 1776, 150 years later, we were like, fuck you, Dad. I'm out. And we kicked the Brits out. Okay. Why? Because the British were using the United States for all its resources, paying Dick for it, and then making a fortune off of it. And the people in the United States were like, wait a minute. I've never been to England. I don't even talk like those weirdos. Why on earth is all my hard work going to some stupid king who I've never seen? He makes all these rules about me. Screw this. I'm American. Pew pew. Right? Okay, so now you've got a couple generations of folks that have grown up on the moon. They grew up on the moon in low gravity. Their bodies are really lanky and long. They have no bone density. They can't even enter Earth's atmosphere without like shattering every bone in their body under 1G gravity. They can't come here. They're now 3 generations in, and they see this like vast wealth and the beauty that people on Earth get to experience, and the oceans and birds and shit. And they're like, wait a minute, why is Jeff Bezos's great-great-grandkids making a fortune off of all my hard work, and I'm stuck on the moon forever? My kids are stuck on the moon. We're no longer Earthlings. We're Moonlings. Screw you. We're going to war. And they're going to kick out Jeff Bezos's great-great-grandson and all of his little private contractors and military people. And they're going to be like, we control the resources on the moon now. Now King Moon Man gets to make all the money off of it. And those are... basically the outcome of our future, unless we sit down at the UNUSA, UN Outer Space, crap, can't remember the name of it, but in the UN sits down and gets these international treaties done proactively now before we have this giant mess in space. I think it's a great way to end the fact that I am like 10 years behind in the chat. And there's no way I'm going to catch up now. If I missed your chat over the last 2 hours, which I most certainly did, I apologize. We will be doing a show Wednesday. I'm going to see if Rosa can come on Wednesday. She might be busy. Hopefully she gets her hearing. She got today. Fantastic. If she gets it tomorrow, hopefully we can do a post-mortem and talk about it on Wednesday. I'm going to see if she's available for that. And then, who's the dude? I can't remember the name of the guy who they asked if I was going to be on the show. One sec. Let me just jump in here. And it is Graham Elwood, I think is his name. So I might be on his show tomorrow to talk about Acme. So we'll see if that works out. I have no idea if the power will hold, if it's still pounding snow out there or not. But excuse me. So, yeah. So there you go. Now all of a sudden that I've said I'm going to log off, my brain is like shutting down immediately. It's like, so now I got to respond to the 400 messages that showed up while I was doing my show, and I'll try to answer all those probably by morning. But thank you. Did I miss any others? Oh crap. Let me just Oh, Meow Meow had one in here. Now that Rachel weighs like 500 pounds, how am I supposed to trust her line of pet food? Monkey Butt eats it every once in a while, but she prefers the lamb and rice Purina 1 or whatever. Did I miss any others? Crap. Hope I didn't. Did I? Oh, that was the Fusion one was the last one. Sweet. Then I got through all Monkey Butt. We got through all super chats. We did it. Yay. Give me a high five. Give me a high five. Yeah, there you go. Good dog. You're such a good dog. You know what that deserves? You know what that deserves? I'll at least give you. We'll go out on a treat. How about that? One little treat? There you go. I think that's from Costco. It's also from Mystery Mike. Thank you, Mystery Mike. It's a wonderful package. I had to go to the post office, but I don't think I'll be able to make it there tomorrow if there's like a million feet of snow. All right, everybody. Au revoir. I'll see you, if not on that dude show tomorrow, Graham something, Elwood. I'll see you Wednesday, maybe with Rosa on the show. We'll find out. All right? Okay. Have a great night. I'll see you later. Contact me on Reddit or Twitter or whatever, and have a great one.